Call to order. This time I'm going to ask Mr. Smith to lead us in.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we just thank you today. We just thank you for the time that we have here to do the county's business. We just pray for your wisdom. Be with those workers in the county, police, fire, EMS, 911. Lord, we just thank you for the jobs that they do. Continue to be with our workers during this pandemic. We just pray that it can all be over soon. Just be with those that are sick, the nursing homes and the hospitals. Thank you once again for the opportunity that we have here for our county. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Mr. Smith. Next, we have a roll call.
Tracy McDaniel, Tim Spencer,
Here.
Quay Little, Lyman Dawkins, David Smith, Elliott Hughes.
Before I take a motion on the agenda, we're going to be taking off item number 13. Do I have a motion we adopt the agenda for this edition? For this motion is second. Any further discussion about the agenda? Not all in favor, please indicate so of hands. Next, I need approval of the minutes of public hearing and regular meeting 3/15/2021.
So moved.
Second. For this motion is second. Any further discussion about the minutes? If not, all in favor, please indicate. Next, I need approval of the claims to Cherokee County in the amount of $1,111,902.40.
Second.
For this motion is second. Any further discussion about the claim? Not all in favor, please indicate. Next, we have a proclamation. This is National Public Safety Telecommunications Week.
Yeah, y'all, I'll let y'all come on up and we'll present this to you. I'm glad you did. Y'all, it is April 11th through 17th is National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, and the County Council's got a proclamation they want to pass in recognition of everything that y'all do in your department. Cherokee County dispatchers serve as a vital link between our community and our local fire, medical, and law enforcement agencies. Acting as a critical lifeline to other first responders, these unsung everyday heroes are always here to answer the call. They spend countless hours, including holidays, weekends, days, and nights, serving and protecting the citizens of Cherokee County in any and all emergency situations. Cherokee County E911 dispatched over 97,000 calls this year and handles an average of 200,000 emergency 911 calls every year. Cherokee County E911 strives to stay on the cutting edge of the new technology within our field and will continue the ongoing process of upgrading to better serve the public in the time of emergency. Therefore, Cherokee County Council enlists everyone's support in honoring and praying for the men and women of the emergency 911 dispatch and the role they play in making our hometowns and homelands a safer place to live every day. In witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused this bill to be affixed. Chairman Spencer. Thank y'all.
That was perfect.
Thank you.
Here you go. Hey.
Next, we have a petitioner, Ms. Stephanie Hyman, Fearless Steps Incorporated. Ms. Hyman's Humble Playground. With Dunbar, Ms. Hyman.
Remove my mask. You need me to remove it?
You take it off.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Stephanie Heilman, the founder of Silent Steps. You will see in front of you a special request from our organization to the county. We have some closing up costs that we need some fencing, but I wanted to just give you an update on the playground and go through a couple of pictures that we've taken of the progress of the playground. You have that, Ms. Doris?
I don't have that.
Did you not? Dustin, did you get the email that I sent to you?
Yes.
And we just wanted to reiterate to the council, bless you, of the short time frame that we have been able to raise over $300,000 to fully fund the all-inclusive playground at the 121 Public Works Drive. And that phase of the project will be completed in 2 weeks of just the playground. And now we are wrapping up some closing costs that we need some sidewalks poured to create that fully accessible, all-inclusive theme that will go along with the playground, and some fencing to go around the equipment. And we have provided 2 quotes for you all to review. So here is the restroom facility, and our director at the Recreation District is Marcus Bradley, as you know. And here is the playground equipment. When all of the equipment is finished being installed, then they will come in and pour a rubber surface matting that will create that, take away all those barriers and create the all-inclusivity for that playground equipment. And then for this particular picture or this view, that's where the sidewalk will have to start from that actual parking point to playground point to restroom point. All of that has to be poured for concrete for everyone to be able to access and ambulate over that freely. So we're really excited about being able to give this back to Cherokee County. And that's just a sample. That's just a picture that I took that what the fencing would look like on top of the wall that's around the equipment. So you can see how that will lay on top of that. Newman Fencing has provided their quote, and they were able to give us a tax-deductible break on that, and BWC with BWC Contracting, Rice Cook, for the sidewalks. And that should do it for all of our costs. And our plan date to cut the ribbon, we're looking at maybe by the end of June, if Cherokee County decides to honor our request.
Mr. Ratton, how do we fit this into our procurement? Guide me through that.
Well, Mr. Folks, this is of course a special project that what we would want to do would be to issue the check. We'd be issuing the check to Silas Steps, and then they would pay the contractors, but with BWC providing the work at materials only for the $14,000, I certainly feel like we would be fine on that. And with their price on the fencing, I think as long as you all think that looks to be in line with y'all's knowledge, then I think we'd be fine on that. Mr. Folks.
You're not seeing any issues for procurement, I'll make the motion if we approve the request. Number one thing coming out of our study, and what I continuously hear about Cherokee County is we need more recreation. We can't allow this project to go unfinished. So I'll make the motion.
I'll second that because you're right. It's time to get recreation right in this town, it's in this county, and this is the first step in doing that. I mean, we are. What were we told, Steve, at the Spark Center last week? Cherokee County is the last great frontier. It is time to make things happen. So I'll put that. I'll second that motion.
You've heard this motion, you've heard this second. Any further discussion from Ms. Hyman?
Mr. Brett, can you elaborate on how this has turned into a partnership and how we're seeing communication and togetherness amongst
Yes, sir.
entities?
I think, and Ms. Holland certainly in her report has shown you that this is a community effort among a lot of our entities, but also one of the things I don't see on here, Stephanie, if I'm right, the Board of Public Works has agreed to provide the lighting up there, if that's correct, that they would provide that also.
Yes, sir.
So we've reached out to them, and they didn't even hesitate, and said that they would certainly participate in that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bratton, there were three additional items that I accidentally left out on there. Lloyd Cobb will be providing the septic tank install and all of his labor. Cherokee County Foundation provided us with $1,000 to create a website. Oscar Fuller set that match off with $1,000. And then the Board of Public Works is going to also do the water.
Water taps.
Yes, sir. So in addition to what he just.
In addition to the lighting they're providing, so yeah.
So those were, sorry. There's just so many people involved. I just accidentally left those items out.
Yeah, this is truly one of many, I hope, public-private partnerships where a lot of people have come together to make this possible. And if I can, Mr. Chairman, if you'll give me a moment, I was out there today, and it's really, if you haven't been by, go right by. It's something I know Mr. Smith said he saw it recently. But to come from where you started to now is truly amazing. But it just shows what this county can do when there's a need and when people see it, to raise the amount of money that she's been able to raise.
Thank you, sir. If you go to the next slide, you'll see what the finished product will look like once we're done. The last slide.
The last slide.
We're supposed to be,
Yeah.
there it is. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Cost that we're covering, that's the 14,000, correct? Is
Sir?
that or are we doing the total?
The 34,000. This will be 14,000 for the concrete and 20,000 for the fencing,
24,000.
Mr. Dawkins.
I didn't want to be greedy and ask for 115 on that 14. Sure,
Any
we can
further
find that somewhere.
Any further discussion for Ms. Hyman? If not, all in favor, please indicate your hands.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
God bless
Stephanie,
you.
for what you've done. It's beautiful, and
Thank you.
we appreciate you bringing such a playground for the kids special.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you, Elder. Big round of applause, please.
Next, we have a presenter, this is Appalachian Council of Government, Executive Director Steve Pelletier.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Spencer and members of County Council. I'm here for my annual report to Cherokee County on services provided by the Appalachian Council of Governments through 2020 and return on investment. I provided a copy of the annual report with a Cherokee County supplement stuffed in the front just before the meeting started tonight. As I come this evening, I'm a little bit saddened. I've been with the Council of Governments for 31 years, and on my second day on the job, I had a meeting with Charles Mathis to talk about a water line, and so I'm a little bit saddened that Mr. Mathis is no longer with us, but certainly enjoyed working with him over all those years, and Mr. Hughes, look forward to working with you in the future. Appreciate Mr. Dawkins, who serves on our board of directors. Other board members from Cherokee County include Representative Dennis Moss, your appointees, Mr. Ed Elliott and Mr. David Cawthon, and I'm glad to report that Mr. Elliott and Mr. Cawthon continue to have excellent service, excellent attendance and participation at our meetings, and certainly represent Cherokee County very well. And for our final member from the county, we're waiting on an appointment from the Blacksburg Town Council. Again, I'm here to provide our report of services over calendar 2020. And I think a good measure of performance is return on investment. And for the last fiscal year, your investment in the Council of Governments was $29,055. The return on investment back to the county over the year was about $1.59 million. Funds going to the county or other entities in the county or people that you all serve. So that return on investment is $54 back to the citizens of Cherokee County for each dollar you invest. Currently, we have 2 projects ongoing in the county through our rural transportation program. Intersection improvements along Old Post Road at Highway 11 and Highway 105, $600,000 last year for a total $3.6 million project that's scheduled to be completed in FY 2022. And then also the Limestone Street, O'Neill Street intersection project spent $350,000 last year, and it's a total $1.6 million project scheduled for completion in 2023. Since the Rural Improvement Projects program started in 1998, we've provided $18.7 million in funding for projects in Cherokee County. The T-Bridge is something I get asked about a lot, and with the new American Recovery Program Act and other acts, there's a lot of money coming down where we analyze all of those for potential funding for that T-Bridge project, and certainly keep it in the front of our minds to look for ways to get additional funding for that. Also, last year we were able to provide $60,000 to the Cherokee County DSN board for the purchase of an ADA compliant or ADA equipped van to serve its clients. Last year we were able to provide $428,000 in funding for senior services in the county. Our purpose is to allow seniors to remain at home, to provide the resources or the referrals that they need in order to stay in their homes, as opposed to have to go into an institution where they don't thrive very well compared to being in their community, and also cost the taxpayers a whole lot more to support someone in an institution than to provide them with some resources that allow them to stay at home. This includes over 41,000 meals, over 1,900 hours of in-home service, $35,000 in caregiver respite, ombudsman services where folks had concerns about the treatment of a loved one in a nursing or other long-term care facility. We're able to look into those and get those resolved. Also, non-emergency medical transport, primarily dialysis service. And of course, as oftentimes as somebody needs to go to dialysis up to a few times a week in order to get that service. So folks who don't have cars or their own transportation, people to afford that is obviously very critical. I've been giving this report since 2006. This is the first year I'm not reporting on any new federal grant funds that we work with entities in the county to get. Over the years, we've had numerous water and sewer projects. Y'all have been very aggressive in those, and those are still out there, and projects funding that's still available. And obviously, we want to continue to work with you and BPW and the other providers on those. We do have one ongoing grant project, the Blacksburg Lime Street Trailhead and Park Project, a $500,000 Appalachian Regional Commission grant. Over the last 6 years, we've worked with entities in the county to obtain $6 million, a little over $6 million in grant funding. Some other services continue to work closely with the Jim Cuckendem at the Development Board, built a new interactive data visualization tool for their website, provide information they need when they get requests for information to fill those out to get folks interested in investing in your county. Responded to 43 requests for information from firms looking to potentially move or expand in Cherokee County. Currently working with the Pavilion Group on a federal grant application to provide for its citizens broadband radio services. This would expand high-speed internet access for telehealth students and people working from home. That application is ongoing. Continue to provide state-mandated education programs for board members and compliance staff. In general, technical assistance to both Gaffney and Blacksburg. And in addition to that, have been working with local governments, special purpose districts to make sure everybody has the latest information on COVID-19, grant opportunities that are available, electronic meetings and other CDC guidance. Looking into the future, we're currently developing our next 5-year transportation plan. That's the program where the 2 projects I mentioned, the Old Post Road and the other projects are coming from. So we certainly want to get new project ideas from Cherokee County's program on that. We'll be following up with your administrator to see, what your highest needs are for that, and identifying projects for the American Recovery Program. Still, what we're getting from Washington's in the preliminary stages, but there's a lot of money on that, and want to make sure that Cherokee County gets your share of that to meet the needs of your community. There's more in the book, but I won't read the whole book to you. You have a fairly lengthy agenda tonight, but if there's any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And again, thank you for your support in the Appalachian Council of Governments.
Any questions for Mr. Pellizer? Thank you, Mr. Pellizer.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for everything. Next, we have the first reading of ordinance number 2021-04. This is the RV Park Ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is a recommendation that's coming to you all from the Cherokee County Citizens Planning Commission. As you all know, and we've spoken at length in the past 2 years regarding the number of RV parks that we've seen pop up in our county over the past several years, and a lot of that's attributed to, of course, the interstate widening, but if you talk to some of the folks who are on those, it's a lot of different factors and a lot of different folks who are moving into these both temporarily, and there's some where people are actually living in them. We've seen traveling nurses, we've seen older retirees, various walks of life in these parks. Some of the parks in our county are very well kept, very nice. Some are not so much, and we certainly try to police those as best we can through code enforcement and property maintenance. What we do not have in our county currently is a good set of guidelines by which we can administer the creation of new RV parks. So I myself and Dale Jabert, who's here today, have gone and looked at other counties around us. We've talked to the folks at COG and just tried to find some examples of what some other counties do. We found some that are so restrictive that you would just say, well, they just don't want them there. But then you find some that where there's lakes and big bodies of water, such as in York on Lake Wiley, and other places where their restrictions are somewhat different than what ours would be. And what we try to do in working with the Planning Commission is to come up with a document and an ordinance that we feel like would allow, of course, the creation of an RV park or a campground in our community, but also would be set up in such a way that, honestly, if it's built across the road from you wouldn't mind that, and it wouldn't hurt property values and so forth, and that it's just certain things that we needed to felt like we needed to cover. If you look at the document that's provided for you in your packet and go to the second page, I've highlighted several things that I think are important, and these are kind of the major points of this document. The first being that the minimum acreage for an RV park or campground shall be 9 contiguous acres, not separated by highways. The maximum number of units for an RV park or campground shall be 8 units per physical acre, with a minimum lot size per unit being 20 feet by 30 feet. That's one change that the Planning Commission had. We had 20 by 40, I believe it was, Dale, and they asked that we change that to 20 by 30, just so that everybody feels good about the ability to get 8 on an acre, and that those will fit. The minimum spacing between units is a minimum of 35 feet. Coming on down to the bottom, all new RV park construction as of the date of this regulation shall provide for 50 foot of setback from adjoining neighboring properties with an approved buffer, and that can be existing vegetation or structures may qualify, and then buffers would be addressed by the building department and under Dale's review. On the next page at the top, RVs that are deemed uninhabitable by the county will not be allowed to be placed, parked, or stored on any RV parks in the county. So that one is important. If you've seen, there's a couple that, I won't name names, but there's a couple where that's a problem for us. Another big thing that we wanted to include is that wheels or similar devices for transportation of any RV shall not be removed except for repairs lasting no longer than 10 days. So in other words, it has to be an RV. It can't be set up to be permanently lived in. They're just not built to those standards, and therefore we felt like they didn't need to be set up that way.
Right, there's a typo.
Where's that, Mr.?
Wheels of similar devices, you got to remove, expect for repairs.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's
It's
it, but just fix that.
Yeah, spell check didn't pick that one up because it was a word.
Well, I picked it up, but it was wrong.
Right. One thing to keep in mind is that modifications of existing RV parks that are made after this ordinance goes into effect, if you all see fit to pass this ordinance, any modifications of existing RV parks that are made would mean they have to bring their entire RV park up to this standard, much as that we have in place right now for our junkyard ordinance.
What defines a modification?
An expansion is our main concern, would be an expansion of that, and we could certainly replace that word with expansion.
How are we gonna know that?
We'd know it. We keep an eye on these, Mr. Little.
The ones that are in place now, do we have a listing of how many units are on each one?
We do. We got those back in the documents for what their space is. It's really based on the DHEC septic tank thing, so we didn't really have a good feel for what we really see as far as density. But we certainly could provide those numbers.
No, I just want to make sure y'all have those numbers in case there is additional.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yes, sir. We've got that, and we try to keep up with that also for 911 purposes, because we get a lot of calls, and that's something else you'll see over here in a minute. We get a lot of calls in these RV parks, and it's hard to tell somebody where they're going. So we know how many is there. We got an idea of road names and so forth. But the ones we've got right now are all permitted, and they were permitted under some old guidance, and we're not really sure how that came about, but anyway, those were permitted that way. One of the other really important things for us is item Q. All camp trash and debris must be disposed of by a private qualified third-party contractor. These are businesses, so therefore the county will not be providing roll carts at each RV site. Currently, in the existing ones, we had been, and that's kind of what started me down this road and looking at what we had, but we've got several that every site has got a county trash can, and we go see those, and I'm trying to figure out how I can work around that, because it is a business, purely business.
That not be a requirement of a dumpster?
That's what Q was saying, that you require a dumpster, yes, sir, but our existing ones, we haven't permitted any in the last year and a half, Mr. Secretary, since we changed the way we were viewing the guidance that we had in place.
Just have county trash cans out.
Yes, sir. There's only, I think, KOA and one other one, I think Iron City Campground actually have a dumpster.
How many do you,
How many sites do we have
how many
countywide?
do we have trash cans at?
Hundreds. I can't sit here and give you a number.
Well, that's what I'm saying is very important to the modification.
Yes, sir.
That alone.
Letter R, no structure or addition can be attached to or supported by a recreational vehicle that would render the vehicle immobile. So don't go underpinning it and building a porch onto it, because then that indicates you're living there. And we want these to be, they need to be mobile. That's the whole point of these. It's a campground and an RV park, not a mobile home park. If you come on over, let's see, I don't have the page number, but go over 2 pages. Water and sewer requirements, letter B, sewage discharge into an approved public collection, treatment, or disposal system if available. So if there's sewer available, you have to tap onto it, and you have to do so according to the way DHEC tells you have to. Where the use of on-site wastewater treatment and disposal systems is necessary, the system shall be installed and operated in accordance with applicable regulations and standards of DHEC. So in other words, if you're going to put in a septic system, DHEC has to permit it. But if sewer's available, you have to tap onto it and use sewer service. One of the other things we've got here, a lot of your state parks, I don't know how many you can, a lot of your state parks have dump stations, and we've permitted that you could have a dump station in here. We've also permitted that you can have bathhouses, because if you go, specifically speaking of KOA, everybody knows we have a KOA in this county. A lot of KOAs have bathhouses for tent sites and so forth, and we specified one page back as to how many water closets, how many urinals, lavatories, showers they have to have, depending on how many campsites they have and so forth, if they choose to go that route. I think we have one in the county with bathhouses, is that right, Dale?
Right.
I think we have one in the county right now that has a bathhouse. But what this has done, this document does for us is we wanted to put a decent number of acres that you had to have in order to put one up, because we were getting permit applications coming in from folks with 2 acres of land, and you were just going to be, you'd be proliferated with the number of them that we would have. So this gives us something that we can definitively say, here's what the council has passed. We felt like 9 acres was a good compromise from some of the others that we had seen. 8 units per physical acre, that is slightly more, and one of the questions the planning commission had was, what's the mobile home park ordinance say? And the mobile home park ordinance says if you're on public sewer, you can put 6. If you're not, you can put 2. These are not mobile homes. These folks are not going to live there permanently. There is a need for these, not just in our county, but all over. But I think you're going to see a lot of this from the casino, construction workers, folks living here and driving that short distance. I-85 is however long it's going to take to do that. But we just felt like that we needed something. This was not definitively addressed in our ordinances, so we felt like we needed to have this, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any discussion?
Mr. Brackman, where in here, let's say I own 7 acres in the middle of a residential section. Is there anything that keeps me from putting one of these in the middle of an existing neighborhood?
No, well, you'd have to have 9 acres.
Okay,
yeah,
so
but if you had 9, but no, sir, I mean, that's zoning when we do that, and we don't have zoning. What we say is you can't be more than 50 foot from the line.
Restrictions, with the restrictions of the neighborhood, the existing neighborhood, play into that?
Well, if they had restricted covenants, then yes, sir, but that would be a civil matter. That would not be something we could take up. If there is a problem, if you're violating your restricted covenants in your neighborhood, that is not something that we as the county can address. That's correct. Right, Mr. Mathis, that would be a civil matter for your neighbors to deal with.
So let's try to address a few things I saw on social media about this. Is the county in any way trying to obtain new taxes or fees from these organizations?
No, sir. No, sir.
No new taxes or no new fees are being created. Our county is trying to find a way to get new tax revenue off of these RV parks, right?
No, sir. The only taxes they pay that's any different than anybody else is they do pay accommodations taxes. But we collect those, but that's nothing new. That's been in place.
Does the property tax change? You got agricultural use?
Well, yeah, if you did that, if you changed the use of your property, then yes, sir, then that would be, but that's not a new, we're not putting anything in here. That's just state law.
Yeah, but whenever they put in sewage or put in water taps and then they put in power, that increases the value of the property.
That's correct, but there's no new type of tax being put into this.
We're not creating a new tax or a fee for the county to be able to weigh in on the RV parks and get us a new revenue.
And even if you didn't have this ordinance, if they go improve their property, that we're gonna get that anyway through the assessor's office. They have to pull a permit. We get that anyway. But there's nothing new here being created.
Do we need to add some kind of tax to this, Doug?
No, sir.
That's what's being alleged, like the county wants to come in and levy new taxes or fees on RV parks. That's not the case. This ordinance, and correct me if I'm wrong, is clearly being addressed to address any adjoining property complaints. People that have property associated with the new RV park that may have trash complaints or something, sewage runoff complaints, that being able to address that. Is that true?
That's correct, Mr. Folks, and you have multiple items here. You have a public safety issue. We've addressed in here that you can't be turning straight off of the main road or a public road into a space. You have to turn onto one main road, and then all the roads inside the park are on. There's a private road that can't be county roads, so that is a public safety concern that we've seen. But also, like I said, I think we have, is it 15, Dale? 15 RV parks approximately?
Approximately, yes.
About 15 RV parks in the county. 95% of them are well kept, but there's a couple that if folks saw that they would understand, they would want to see us address some of the things that we're addressing. One of the other things that I want to be sure to express is that the county has to approve your roads. It has to be built to a certain standard, but we're not going to own those roads, but we still want to be sure that those roads are being built to the proper standards.
What about the existing ones? You gonna go back and make them meet the proper standards?
No, sir, not unless they expand. If they expand, then no, sir. Otherwise, they'll be kind of like our junkyard. It'll be a non-conforming RV park, and it'd be grandfathered in.
You said we got 15 parks now, Dale?
Approximately.
But the reason we only have 15 is because we stopped permitting them. Now we're opening up this permit thing. So now when we go from, and I'm just gonna use you the number, if each 15 parks has 100 campers out there now, when this permit's opened up and we go to 1,000, you just said it wasn't but 2 people that work for Dale doing this. Who's gonna police this?
Well, we don't go inspect. They have to. What we've built here is they have to submit plans to us. They have to submit a full set of drawings to us, exactly what they're going to build and how they're going to lay it out. So we'll be reviewing and overseeing the construction of it. But then it's going to be like any other property maintenance issue, Mr. Spencer.
But the only thing, if I go buy a brand new one tomorrow, and I don't never do no upkeep or cleaning or washing or anything, in 6 months that thing's gonna look awful. So who's gonna police this and say?
We can't police that. All we can police is it uninhabitable?
Or we can address complaints, correct?
And we can address the complaints.
What about dog issues around these things?
And that's just a dog issue. I mean, it'll be handled by, just like we handle all dog calls.
We have a leash ordinance in place, right?
We got it, yes, sir.
Let me ask you this, is this a one vote deal, Joe, or is this a?
It's 3 readings and public hearing.
Okay, so, okay.
Just first reading.
All right.
So,
Any further discussion?
that's what I was getting at. So the county's not creating any new tax, no new fees. And primary reason for this ordinance is to address adjoining property complaints if we had some. But overall, 90% other than the underpinning and not making it a permanent site, this ordinance particularly just addresses the property owner and operator to keep an environmentally and physically safe place for people to be. It doesn't necessarily affect the RV campers.
No, sir. If anything, it protects them to a degree, and it makes sure that there's adequate space between them and so forth. And also, another public safety thing that we've got in here is every space has to have one of those green reflective numbered lot signs. Those lots will be assigned by Ms. Kidd in our 911 addressing, so that when we get a call, then we know where they are, because there's so many times we get a 911 call for an ambulance in an RV park and they can't find them because they're not numbered and they're not labeled for sure. So we wind up having to get descriptions of what the RV looks like. Well, y'all know, if you've seen one RV color about, you can't describe that. So that's in here. So many things like that are in here. And Mr. Spencer, if I may, we didn't stop permitting them. We simply started reading the guidance that we had and did not have. We would still permit them if you only wanted to put 6 on an acre if you were on sewer, or 2 if you were on a septic tank, because all we had to go by was the mobile home ordinance. That's the stance that Dale and I took, that was the only guidance we had. So we would still permit them, but nobody wanted to do that because it didn't make sense for them financially to do that for an RV park. We feel like this will allow someone that's got a significant amount of land to do things, but to do it in a way that won't hurt their neighbors and in a way that will be conducive to public safety and so forth.
Any further discussion? If not, I need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Curtis motion and second. Any further discussion? None. If not, all in favor, please indicate your hands. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Next, we have first reading of ordinance number 2021-05. This is providing the insurance and the sale not exceeding $11 million. Total principal amount of general obligation improvement bonds of Cherokee County, South Carolina, and other matters related thereto.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, you are having first reading of this tonight by title only as the request. I've been working with Lawrence Flynn, who of course is with Pope Flynn with our bond attorney. And we've got so many big projects in the county coming up with proposed public works facility. The price tag when we started the process of $12 to $13 million. And of course, the county's entered into an agreement to purchase the Ace Hardware building to be renovated to put DJJ and some other state agencies in that facility. Significant amount of money that we're going to be spending on some facilities. Didn't want to tap into our reserves any more than we had to, and as you all know, with interest rates being as low as they are right now, there's been several privately placed bond issues recently that's going for close to 1% to 1.5%. And I've worked with him, and in looking at our debt limit that we're statutorily set at by the state, we feel like $11 million is going to cover a significant portion of those expenditures. We'd still have to dip into our reserves for some portion of that, but we can borrow this money. We believe, as the market is right now, at about 1 to 1.5% for 10 years. Be no increase in millage at all. I want to be sure that everybody hears that. There would be no tax increase of this. The only debt that we have right now with the county is this facility that we're sitting in, and it's got 3 years left on it, and the payments on this would be structured as such to where that would be paid off and this would be being paid off at the same time, again with no millage increase to our taxpayers.
You've heard his first reading, or your motion?
So moved.
Second.
Heard his motion and a second. Any further discussion on this first reading? If not, all in favor, please indicate your vote. Next, we hear from our attorney, Joe Michael.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any report right now until we get down to the executive session later on the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Michael. Next, we'll hear from our administrator, Steve Bratton.
Mr. Chairman, I met a couple of weeks ago, since our last meeting, and unfortunately for you guys, or unfortunately for me, my thunder has been stolen by Facebook and the Gaffney Ledger, but we got really good news from the Gaffney Outlet Marketplace that in meeting with their area manager and myself and James Taylor and Corey Cox with the Board of Public Works, there is no intentions of selling that facility. That facility is actually in the black, does fairly well for them. And I cleared everything I'm going to say with her to make sure I was okay and safe. There is a focus by them right now to focus on small businesses and local merchants. They've got some local restaurants who are looking to maybe put a place in their food court and so forth. So they're kind of expanding their horizons. They said your big national chain stores aren't looking to do a lot of leasing right now. But they said lease activity has increased. They're getting a lot of calls again from local folks. And part of the reason for that meeting was, what can we do to help them? And then they've spoken with, there's some discussions about business license within the city limits. Of course, we don't have a business license, but how the city does their business license. There was conversations about how to, in a little bit more conducive manner, structure deposits for the Board of Public Works. Of course, you guys did a huge service to that facility when we waived blue laws for certain types of businesses in our community during the past year or so. But it's good news out there. All their services are being brought back up to par. Their landscaping, which everybody was having a fit about for so long, wasn't just there. It was at every Simon facility around that they had landscaping issues because there were so many services that they cut out. But all that's back up to speed. They are testing a new type of awning on the back side of the outlet mall, and it's much more cost effective than what they were looking at. So they're testing that, and if it holds up well to the summer heat and to the sun and don't fade too bad, then they're looking at possibly going around and redoing all of them into that. So anyway, I just wanted you all to have that information. But that was certainly good to hear, and there's been so many rumors that's been floated about that place, but that is straight from the Simon folks, so that's exactly where they are right now. Okay.
Thank you for that update, Mr. Bright. Next, we have an executive session on 3 different matters. Mr. Mathis.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A motion will be in order to go into executive session pursuant to section 3470A1 for discussion of a personnel matter arising in the administration department. Pursuant to 3470A1, discussion of a personnel matter from the Public Works Department. And pursuant to 3470A2 for discussion of a contractual matter, that should be matters related to Public Works and the discussion incident to proposed contractual arrangements to the proposed sale or purchase of property of the county.
You've heard this request, are there a motion?
So moved.
Second. Heard this motion in a second. All in favor going into executive session, please identify by show of hands. We're gonna take a short recess. Call to order. Mr. Mathis.
Mr. Chairman, motion will be in order to return to regular session from executive session. Madam Clerk, let the record reflect no action was taken in executive session.
You've heard this request, or that motion to return to regular session.
So moved.
Second. Heard this motion second, all in favor of returning to regular session, please identify your name. Mr. Bradley.
Mr. Chairman, I would request permission from the council to post a position of Public Works Director on the county's website and open for employment. This would be funded through existing budgetary monies. It would not require any additional funds.
So moved.
Second. Heard this motion second, any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please indicate so by hand. That's all you have, Mr. Bradley?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Any appointments? I have one myself. I'd like to appoint David Coyle back to Tax Assessor Board of Appeals.
Second.
Heard this motion second, any further discussion on this appointment? If not, all in favor, please indicate show of hands. Any other appointments? Not any new, old, or other business? If not, we stand adjourned.